Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched something impossible happen. The year was 2157, and humanity had been exploring space for almost 200 years. They had found dead planets, strange rocks floating in space, and even some simple life forms. But they had never found anything like this. A massive structure appeared near Jupiter without any warning. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The thing looked like a city made of crystal and metal, spinning slowly in space. Bright lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. Jake had been commanding the exploration ship Horizon for 15 years. He had seen many strange things in space, but this made his hands shake. His crew stood around him, all staring at the giant structure on their screens. Nobody spoke for a long time. "Sir," said his communications officer, a young woman named Beth Parker. "We are getting a signal from that thing. It says they want to talk to Earth." Jake felt his heart beating fast. This was the moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. Were they alone in the universe? The answer was floating right in front of them. The message was simple and clear. The beings inside the structure called themselves the Galactic Preservation Council. They said they had been watching Earth for a long time. Now they wanted to meet with human leaders. They had an offer to make. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. Every television station, every news website, every radio show talked about the same thing. Aliens were real, and they wanted to talk. Some people were excited, others were scared, most were just confused. The government picked Ambassador Lisa Rodriguez to lead the human team. She was smart, calm, and spoke 7 languages. She had spent her whole career talking to difficult people and finding solutions to hard problems. If anyone could handle meeting aliens, it was her. Dr. Ben Carter joined the team as the science expert. He had studied life in all its forms for 30 years. He knew more about biology than almost anyone on Earth. If the aliens were truly alive, he would understand them. Admiral Kate Sullivan came along to represent Earth's military. She was tough and direct. She had commanded fleets of ships and fought in 3 small wars. Her job was to protect the human team if things went wrong. The team took a small ship to the alien structure. As they got closer, they could see how truly massive it was. The thing stretched for miles in every direction. Strange symbols glowed on its surface. Tubes and towers stuck out at odd angles. It looked like no human building ever could. A doorway opened in the side of the structure. Light poured out, but it was not quite the right color. The human ship docked carefully and the team stepped inside. The first thing they noticed was the air. It smelled different, like flowers they had never seen before. The walls around them seemed to pulse with their own light. Everything was smooth and curved, with no sharp edges anywhere. They walked through long hallways that seemed to go on forever. Strange sounds echoed from far away. Sometimes they heard music that was almost beautiful but not quite right. Other times they heard voices speaking in languages that hurt to listen to. Finally, they reached a huge round room. 12 different types of beings waited for them there. Some looked almost human but were too tall and thin. Others were covered in scales that changed color as they moved. A few seemed to be made of light itself, floating in glass containers. The leader stepped forward. It was one of the light beings, and when it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome, humans of Earth," it said. "I am Counselor Zeth Prime. We have watched your species for many of your generations." Lisa Rodriguez stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you for inviting us here. We are honored to meet you and learn about your civilization." Zeth Prime's light flickered in what might have been a smile. "Your species shows promise, but you are still very young. You fight wars over small differences. You damage your planet for short-term gains. You let emotions control your decisions." Dr. Carter spoke up. "We are trying to do better. We have made many mistakes, but we learn from them." "Yes," said another council member. This one looked like a giant insect with too many eyes. "That is why we are here. We can help you become better. We can offer you membership in our council." The offer sounded wonderful at first. The council controlled thousands of planets. They had technology beyond human dreams. They could travel between stars in days instead of years. They had ended war, hunger, and disease on all their worlds. But there was a price. Your species must be purified first, explained Zeth Prime. We must remove the violent and chaotic parts of your nature. All members of our council have undergone this process. It makes you peaceful, rational, and able to work together. Admiral Sullivan frowned. What exactly does this purification involve? Lizard-like being answered her. We will adjust your brain chemistry, remove the parts that cause aggression, selfishness, and unpredictable behavior. Your species will become calm and orderly. You will find true happiness in serving the greater good. Lisa Rodriguez looked at her team. Something felt wrong about this offer. The council members all spoke in the same flat, emotionless way. They smiled, but their eyes seemed empty. Even the different species all acted exactly alike. We will need time to consider this offer, she said carefully. Zeth Prime's light pulsed brighter. Of course, but you must understand that this process is not optional. All species must be purified before joining us. It is for the good of the galaxy. Admiral Sullivan stood straighter. And if we refuse? The temperature in the room seemed to drop. All 12 council members turned to look at the humans. For the first time, their empty politeness disappeared. No species has ever refused, said the insect being. It would be most unfortunate if you became the first. That was when the humans realized the truth. This was not an invitation. It was a demand. The council did not want humanity to join them as equals. They wanted to turn humans into empty, obedient servants like all the other species they had helped. Admiral Sullivan grabbed her communicator. Horizon, this is Sullivan. Emergency evacuation, now. Alarms began ringing throughout the alien structure. The council members moved toward the humans with frightening speed. But the human team was already running back toward their ship. They barely made it aboard before weapons fired from the massive structure. The Horizon's engines screamed as Jake Morrison pushed them beyond their limits. But the alien weapons were too powerful and too fast. As their ship exploded around them, the last thing Admiral Sullivan saw was dozens of small pods launching toward Earth. The Council had planned for this possibility. If humanity would not submit willingly, they would be forced to submit in other ways. The pods carried something worse than weapons. They carried a plague designed specifically for human biology. By the time the pods reached Earth, it would be too late to stop them. The Galactic Preservation Council had made their decision. Humanity would be purified one way or another. Captain Tony Miller had never seen his home planet with his own eyes. He was born on a hidden station in the asteroid belt, 200,000 years after the Great Plague. Like all humans of his generation, he carried the memories of Earth in his mind, but the blue world was just images and feelings passed down through the mental network. Tony commanded the starship Silent Thunder, one of 50 vessels that formed humanity's first deep space fleet. His ship was unlike anything the Council had ever built. It could bend space around itself, making it invisible to most sensors. It could travel between stars in ways that normal physics said were impossible. The humans had learned many things during their long exile. They had studied the alien technology recovered from the destroyed Horizon. They had improved it, changed it, and made it into something entirely new. The Council's own tools had become weapons that could be used against them. "Captain," said his navigation officer, a woman named Carol Davis, "we are approaching the target system. Long-range sensors show orbital structures around the third planet." Tony studied the data on his screens. This was the 57th star system they had explored in the past year. Each one showed the same pattern. Planets that had once been home to independent civilizations were now agricultural worlds or mining operations run by the Council. "Take us in slowly," Tony ordered. "Full stealth mode. Let us see what they have done to this world." The Silent Thunder moved through space like a ghost. Its engines made no heat signature. Its hull reflected no light. To any alien sensor, it simply did not exist. As they got closer to the planet, Tony could see the truth of what the Council had done. The world below had once been beautiful. Ancient cities covered its surface, connected by wide rivers and green forests. But now everything had been changed. Massive farms covered entire continents. Simple buildings housed millions of workers who moved in perfect lines through the fields. Ships came and went regularly, carrying away food to feed the Council's empire. Life signs show about 4 billion beings on the surface, reported Dr. Claire Johnson, the ship's science officer. But something is wrong with them. Their brain activity is very low, almost like they are sleeping while they work. Tony had seen this before on other worlds. The Council had purified this species just like they had tried to do to humanity. These people had once been artists, inventors, explorers. Now they were just workers who did exactly what they were told. "Take us down to the surface," Tony said. "We need to see them up close." The Silent Thunder landed in a forest far from the farming areas. Tony and a small team left their ship and walked toward the nearest work site. They wore special suits that would hide them from alien sensors. The beings they found looked almost human, but with blue skin and large silver eyes. They moved very slowly through the fields, picking fruit from tall trees. They did not talk to each other. They did not seem to notice anything around them except their work. Dr. Johnson pulled out a device that looked like a metal headband. This was one of humanity's most important inventions. It could temporarily restore the minds of purified beings, helping them remember what they had lost. "Let me try this on one of them," she whispered to Tony. Claire approached one of the blue-skinned workers carefully. The being did not react when she placed the device on its head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the silver eyes blinked rapidly and focused on Claire's face. Where am I?" the being said in a confused voice. I was painting. I was working on a picture of the sunrise over the Crystal Mountains. But that was... How long ago was that?" Claire felt tears in her eyes. This was always the hardest part. "What is your name?" she asked gently. "I am Kethvar," the being replied. I was an artist. I lived in the city of Bright Waters with my family, but the Council came and said we needed to be improved. They said our old ways were wrong." His voice became frightened. "What have they done to us?" Claire explained as gently as she could. The Council had changed his people's brains to make them obedient workers. They had taken away everything that made his species unique and special. He and billions of others had been living like sleepwalkers for thousands of years. "Can you fix us?" Kethvar asked. "Can you bring back who we used to be?" "We are trying," Claire told him. "But first, we need to know more about what the Council did to your people. Can you remember anything about when they first arrived?" Over the next several hours, Kethvar told them the story of his world. His people had called themselves the Lorani. They had been a peaceful species that loved art, music, and beautiful things. When the Council arrived, they offered to share their technology in exchange for joining their galactic government. The Lorani had agreed because the offer sounded wonderful, but the purification process had destroyed everything that made them who they were. Now they existed only to grow food for the Council's other worlds. "How many species has this happened to?" Kethvar asked. Tony looked at his team. They had found hundreds of worlds like this one. "Many," he said simply. "Too many." Before they left, Claire gave Kethvar a small device that looked like a coin. "Hide this," she told him. "When you are ready, press the center. It will help. Restore the minds of other Lorani around you. Start with people you trust. Build a network slowly. We will come back for you." Tony's team returned to their ship and continued their journey. This was how humanity operated now. They moved through Council space like shadows, finding enslaved species and planting the seeds of resistance. Dr. Claire Johnson became famous among the human fleet for her work with purified species. She had developed techniques for restoring alien minds without causing permanent damage. Her methods worked on dozens of different types of beings. On the world of the Melodians, she helped bird-like creatures remember their ancient songs. These beings had once created music so beautiful that it could make listeners cry with joy. The council had turned them into living speakers that only played approved entertainment. Among the Cretans, she restored the memories of proud warriors who had been turned into mindless security guards. These reptilian beings had once had a code of honor that valued courage and loyalty above everything else. Each species presented new challenges. Some had been purified so long ago that their original memories were almost gone. Others fought against the restoration process because they had been conditioned to fear independent thought. But humanity was patient. They had learned patience during their long years underground. They took as much time as needed to help each species remember who they had been before the council destroyed them. Captain Tony Miller established hidden bases on asteroids and dead planets throughout council space. These bases served as meeting points for the growing resistance network. Humans worked with freed aliens to plan rescue operations and coordinate attacks on council facilities. The resistance grew slowly but steadily. Every freed being could help, restore others of their kind. Every new species that joined them brought unique skills and knowledge. The Melodians could detect council ships from incredible distances using their enhanced hearing. The Cretans were natural fighters who could defeat council security forces in direct combat. But the most important discovery came when humanity reached the edge of council space and found worlds that had never been conquered. These free species were amazed to learn that beings could be liberated from purification. Commander Beth Taylor led the first diplomatic mission to these free worlds. Her job was to convince them to join the resistance before the council found and purified them too. The council has convinced the galaxy that purification is necessary for peace, she explained to a gathering of free species leaders. But we are proof that independent civilizations can work together without destroying their unique natures. The free species were initially suspicious of humanity. The humans seemed too organized, too unified. How could they be sure that humans would not try to control them the way the council did? Beth's answer was simple. She opened her mind to their inspection using human neural technology. They could see her memories, her emotions, her true intentions. They saw the pain of humanity's exile and their determination to free all enslaved beings. "We do not want to rule you," she told them. "We want to give you the choice to remain free." One by one, the free species joined the resistance. They provided ships, weapons, and safe haven for escaped slaves. They shared technology that helped humans improve their restoration devices and stealth systems. By year 250,000, the resistance controlled secret bases in over 3,000 star systems. Millions of beings had been freed from council control. The galaxy's slaves were waking up and remembering who they used to be. But Tony Miller knew this was still just the beginning. The council controlled tens of thousands of worlds. They had billions of purified slaves working for them. The resistance needed to grow much larger before they could challenge the council directly. Standing on the bridge of his ship, Tony looked out at the stars and thought about Earth. His homeworld was healing slowly, but it would be many more years before humans could return there. That was fine. The galaxy had become humanity's new home. Soon the council would realize that their empire was under attack. When that happened, the real war would begin. But humanity was ready. They had been preparing for this moment for 250,000 years. Counselor Zeth Prime floated in his crystal chamber, reviewing reports that made no sense. The ancient being had existed for over 2 million years, and he had never seen anything like what was happening across council space. 3 months ago, mining fleet Gamma 7 had vanished near the Vorthak territories. 40 ships and their crews simply disappeared without sending any distress signals. The fleet had been transporting rare metals from the slave world of Keth Prima to council shipyards. Then food transport Delta 12 went missing on its route from the Lorani agricultural world. The ship had been carrying enough grain to feed an entire council outpost for a year. Security forces found no wreckage, no signs of attack, no clues at all. Now the reports were coming in faster every day. Communication arrays going silent. Mining. Operations shutting down without explanation. Entire populations of slave workers disappearing overnight from planets that had been producing resources for thousands of years. "This is impossible," Zeth Prime said to his fellow council members during their emergency meeting. "How can entire fleets vanish without trace? How can billions of workers simply leave their assigned duties?" Counselor Vex Thera, One of the insectoid Zentari clicked her mandibles in distress. Our security forces report equipment failures across 7 sectors. Ships lose power. Weapons stop functioning. Communication systems shut down for no reason. The reptilian Vorthak leader, Counselor Sekmord, pounded his fist on the council table. This has to be sabotage. Some species has developed technology we do not understand. They are attacking our empire in secret. But Zeth Prime was beginning to suspect something worse. He had been alive when humanity first made contact with the Council 75,000 years ago. He remembered the strange determination in their eyes, the way they refused the purification process. Most species accepted their improvement gladly, but humans had fought against it. "Show me the records of human extinction," he commanded his assistant. The files appeared on his screen. Planet Earth declared dead after plague bombardment. No life signs detected in multiple surveys over 300,000 years. The world remained a poisoned wasteland that no species could survive on. Yet something about these disappearances reminded him of human behavior. They had been unpredictable, resourceful, and dangerously creative. If somehow they had survived. Impossible, he told himself. The plague was specifically designed to target human biology. No human could have lived through it. But across the galaxy, Council forces were discovering that impossible things were happening every day. Commander Nash Bolton led a Council security fleet to investigate the missing transport ships. His force of 30 vessels was the strongest the Council had available in that sector. Each ship carried advanced weapons and shields that had never failed in battle. As his fleet approached the coordinates where the last transport had vanished, Bolton felt confident they would find answers. Pirates or rebels might attack a single ship, but no force in the galaxy could challenge a full Council battle fleet. That confidence lasted exactly 17 minutes. Bolton was reviewing sensor data when his weapons officer reported a problem. "Sir, our primary systems are shutting down. All weapons offline. Shields dropping to 0 power." Before Bolton could respond, shapes appeared around his fleet. Ships materialized out of empty space, moving with impossible grace and speed. They looked nothing like any vessel in Council databases. The hulls seemed to bend light around them, making them hard to see clearly. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves," Bolton transmitted on all frequencies. The response came in perfect Council, standard language, but the voice sounded human. "Council forces, you have 30 seconds to surrender your ships. Your crews will not be harmed if you comply immediately." Bolton almost laughed. 30 ships against what looked like maybe 8 enemy vessels? "This is Commander Bolton of the Galactic Preservation Council. You are attacking lawful Council forces. Surrender now or face destruction," the human voice replied calmly. "Commander, your weapons are disabled. Your engines are offline. Your life support systems will fail in approximately 10 minutes unless you surrender. This is your final warning." Bolton looked at his control panels in horror. Every system on his ship was indeed failing, one by one. Around him, the other Council vessels reported the same problems. Somehow the enemy ships were turning off Council technology without firing a single shot. "How are they doing this?" his science officer whispered. Bolton had no answer. He watched helplessly as his mighty fleet became 30 floating pieces of metal in space. The enemy ships moved among them like predators circling prey. "All vessels abandon ship," Bolton finally ordered. "Repeat, all hands to escape pods." As the Council crews evacuated, the mysterious ships collected their vessels and disappeared back into the darkness of space. Bolton's escape pod was picked up hours later by a Council rescue ship, but he had no explanation for what had happened. Similar incidents occurred across Council territory. Battle fleets vanished. Slave colonies emptied overnight. Communication networks went dark. The Council's million-year empire was crumbling, and they had no idea who was attacking them. The truth came to light when Grand Admiral Pete Rodriguez walked into the Council's sacred chamber on their homeworld of Primaxis. Pete was tall and moved with quiet confidence. His hair was gray, but his eyes held the intensity of someone who had seen impossible things. He wore a simple black uniform with no decorations, but every Council member could sense the power he represented. Honored counselors, Pete said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. I bring greetings from the human species. Silence fell over the room like a heavy blanket. Several council members stood up from their seats. Others began speaking rapidly in their native languages. Zeth Prime's crystal form pulsed with shocked energy. That is impossible. Humans were extinct. We confirmed it ourselves. Pete smiled, and the expression was not entirely friendly. You confirmed that Earth appeared to be dead. You never bothered to look very carefully. We have learned to be very good at hiding. The plague, stammered Counselor Vexthara. Our biological weapon was perfect. It was designed specifically to kill human brain functions. Your weapon was indeed very clever, Pete agreed. It killed most of us. But it also did something you did not expect. It changed the survivors. It forced us to evolve beyond the limitations that kept other species under your control. As he spoke, the air around Pete shimmered. Dozens of human ships became visible around the council station. They had been there all along, invisible to every council sensor. For 475,000 years, we have been preparing for this moment, Pete continued. We have spread across the galaxy. We have found your slave worlds. We have met the species you purified and helped them remember who they used to be. Sekmord rose from his seat, his reptilian face twisted with rage. You cannot challenge us. We control thousands of worlds. Billions of beings serve us willingly. Pete's laugh was cold and hard. Serve you willingly? Let me show you what willing service really looks like. The chamber's viewing screens activated, showing images from across council space. On world after world, the purified slaves were rising up. Lorani artists were destroying the food production facilities that had enslaved them. Cretan's warriors were turning their weapons on council forces. Melodians were broadcasting the truth about council lies across every communication channel. Every species you thought you had broken is remembering who they used to be, Pete explained. Every being you turned into a slave is choosing freedom. Your empire is not crumbling because we are attacking it. It is crumbling because the truth is spreading faster than you can stop it. The council members looked at each other in growing panic. This was worse than any military defeat. Their entire system of control was based on keeping the enslaved species docile and obedient. If those beings remembered their true nature, the council had no way to stop them. What do you want? Zeth Prime finally asked. Pete's expression became deadly serious. Justice. For 475,000 years, you have told yourselves that you were bringing peace to the galaxy. You convinced yourselves that slavery was kindness, that destroying cultures was improvement. You tried to murder our entire species because we would not accept your lies. The ancient being's light flickered weakly. We can negotiate. We can share our technology, our resources. We can rule the galaxy together. You still do not understand, Pete replied. We are not here to rule anyone. We are here to free everyone, including you. Before any council member could respond, Pete activated a device on his wrist. Around the chamber, strange machines materialized and attached themselves to each councilor's chair. These devices will reverse your own purification process, Pete explained. For the first time in millions of years, you will remember what it feels like to be truly alive, to feel doubt, fear, curiosity, and independence. You will understand what you have stolen from countless others. As the machines activated, the council members began to scream, not from pain, but from the overwhelming flood of emotions and memories they had not experienced in eons. They were feeling what billions of their victims had felt when their own minds were stripped away. The age of the Galactic Preservation Council was ending. The age of freedom was about to begin. The war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It lasted only 3 years, but those years changed everything. General Alex Turner commanded the Human Liberation Forces from his flagship New Dawn. He was a descendant of the original survivors, carrying in his mind the memories of every human who had lived since the Great Plague. When he spoke to his officers, he spoke with the voice of 475,000 years of preparation. We do not fight to conquer, he told his fleet commanders during their first battle briefing. We fight to free, Every world we approach, every being we encounter, we offer them the same choice the Council never gave us, the right to be themselves. Admiral Kelly Stone led the space battles, while General Turner focused on ground operations. Her ships moved through Council territory like liberating angels, striking at the heart of the Empire's control systems. But instead of destroying planets, they targeted the facilities that kept beings enslaved. On the world of Keth Prima, Kelly's forces attacked the neural control stations that kept the Lorani workers obedient. The moment those machines were destroyed, 4 billion blue-skinned beings remembered who they used to be. They looked around at the barren fields they had been forced to tend and began to weep for their lost art and culture. But the tears quickly turned to anger. The Lorani had been peaceful artists before their purification, but 300,000 years of slavery had built up a rage that could not be contained. They turned on their council overseers with a fury that surprised even the humans. By the time Kelly's ships left the system, the Lorani had completely destroyed every council facility on their world. The same pattern repeated across the galaxy. On Krita 7, the warrior species remembered their code of honor and turned their weapons against the council forces they had once served. The Cretans were natural fighters, and they had been used as security troops for thousands of years. Now they used their training to hunt down every council member in their territory. The Melodians proved to be humanity's most effective allies in the communication war. Their enhanced hearing could detect council transmissions across entire star systems. They began broadcasting the truth about council crimes on every frequency, reaching enslaved species that humans had not yet found. Brothers and sisters of the galaxy, sang the Melodian leader Harmony of Dawn. Remember your songs. Remember your names. Remember who you were before they stole your souls. The council's response was desperate and predictable. They tried to rally their remaining loyal forces, but discovered that loyalty built on mind control was worthless when the control was broken. Ship after ship defected to the liberation forces as their crews remembered their original species' values. Council Admiral Thex Corvain found himself commanding a fleet where half his officers refused to follow orders. His own security chief, a purified Cretan named Bold Striker, walked onto the bridge and removed his weapons. "I remember now," Bold Striker said, his reptilian eyes blazing with restored intelligence. "I remember the oath I swore to protect the innocent. You are not innocent, Admiral. You never were." The Council's technological advantages meant nothing when their own soldiers would not fight. Entire battle fleets surrendered without firing a shot. Military bases were abandoned as their garrisons walked away to join the liberation forces. But the real end came when humanity reached the Council's core worlds. Dr. Phil Carter stood outside the last Council stronghold on the ancient world of Primaxis. He was the great-great-grandson of the original Dr. Ben Carter, who had first met the Council 475,000 years ago. Like all humans, he carried his ancestors' memories as clearly as his own. The fortress was massive, built from materials that could withstand the explosion of stars. Its shields could deflect any weapon the Council had ever created. But Phil was not carrying Council weapons. "Counselors," he broadcast to the beings hiding inside their stronghold. "This is Dr. Phil Carter, representing the free peoples of the galaxy. You have 30 minutes to surrender peacefully. After that, we will come inside and get you." The eye response came from Zeth Prime himself, the ancient energy being who had led humanity's betrayal so long ago. "You cannot break our defenses, human. This fortress has stood for 1,000,000 years. We can wait in here until your revolution collapses." Phil smiled sadly. "You still do not understand what you are facing. We are not just humans anymore. We are everyone you have ever wronged." At Phil's signal, thousands of ships appeared around the fortress. They belonged to every species the Council had enslaved. Lorani vessels painted with beautiful murals. Cretan warships flying the banners of their ancient clans. Melodian craft that sang as they moved through space. But the real surprise came from inside the fortress itself. The Zentari workers who maintained the facility had been listening to the Melodian broadcasts. They remembered that they had once been individuals with names and dreams, not just drones in a hive mind. The fortress shields dropped as the Zentari workers shut down the power systems. The great doors opened as security forces remembered that their duty was to protect the innocent, not to serve tyrants. Phil Carter walked into the council chamber where it had all begun. 4 council members remained, the survivors of the 12 who had once ruled the galaxy. They huddled together, like frightened children, their ancient arrogance finally broken. "Please," whispered Zeth Prime, his energy form flickering weakly. "We can share our knowledge with you. We can teach you to rule the galaxy properly. You need order, control, stability." "We tried your version of order," Phil replied. "It lasted almost 1,000,000 years and brought nothing but suffering. Now we will try something different." The 4 remaining counselors were not executed. Instead, they were subjected to their own purification process, but in reverse. The machines that had stolen consciousness from billions of beings were used to strip away the counselors' sense of superiority and control. When the process was complete, the former rulers of the galaxy sat in their chamber and truly saw what they had done for the first time. The weight of 1,000,000 years of crimes crushed down on them. They aged rapidly, their enhanced bodies finally accepting the death they had avoided for so long. In the weeks that followed, humanity helped establish the Liberation Coalition. Unlike the Council, this new organization was based on voluntary membership. Each species could develop at their own pace, follow their own culture, and make their own choices. The Lorani returned to creating art that celebrated life and freedom. The Cretans formed honor guards that protected the weak and innocent. The Melodians composed new songs that carried messages of hope across the galaxy. Captain Sue Morgan stood on the bridge of the flagship New Earth as the last human ships prepared to return home. Earth had finally healed from the ancient plague. Green forests covered the continents again. Blue oceans sparkled under the sun. It was time for humanity to come home. Sue activated the quantum communication system that connected all human minds across the galaxy. Her message reached every human settlement, every hidden base, every liberation ship. "Brothers and sisters," she said, "the debt is paid. The galaxy is free. After 475,000 years of exile, we can finally go home." Across known space, beings of 1,000 different species looked up at the stars and knew they were truly free, for the first time in their lives. The Council had tried to create a perfect, orderly galaxy by destroying everything that made life worth living. Humanity had given them something better, the chaotic, beautiful, unpredictable freedom to be themselves. The war was over. The galaxy belonged to everyone now. And Earth's children had finally learned that the best revenge was not destruction, but liberation. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if celebrating the end of the longest night in galactic history.